Most traders don't break rules randomly. They break rules after something specific happens. A loss, not a catastrophic loss, not a blown account, just a single trade that didn't work. And what follows isn't always obvious from the outside. Sometimes it looks calm, controlled, even rational. But internally, something has already shifted. The loss doesn't just reduce capital, it alters perception. I've watched this pattern repeat across traders with very different experience levels. New traders, funded traders, traders who know their rules perfectly. The moment after a loss is not neutral time. It's a psychological state change. The chart hasn't changed. The market hasn't changed. But you have, after a loss, many traders feel an unspoken urgency to repair something. Not financially, psychologically. There's a subtle pressure to normalize the account, to bring things back to equilibrium, to prove that the loss was an exception. This is where rule breaking begins. Not with recklessness, but with justification. You don't tell yourself you're abandoning discipline. You tell yourself this setup is almost valid, that your read is slightly better this time, that the conditions are close enough, and because the rule breaking is incremental, it feels invisible. One parameter loosened, one filter ignored, one extra trade taken outside plan. What's important to understand is this: you are not responding to the market anymore. You are responding to the loss itself. That loss becomes the reference point for every decision that follows. I've seen traders review charts after these sessions and genuinely not recognize themselves. The logic seemed sound in the moment. The confidence felt real. But it wasn't market confidence. It was emotional compensation. Loss creates a temporary identity fracture. For a moment, you're no longer the disciplined trader. You're the trader who needs to correct something. And correction feels like action. Doing nothing after a loss feels wrong. Waiting feels passive. Following rules feels slow, especially when the market keeps moving. This is why traders often say, I know better, but I still did it. Knowledge isn't the missing piece here. State is, after a loss, your brain shifts from execution mode to repair mode. Repair mode is not interested in rules. It's interested in relief. Relief from discomfort. Relief from doubt. Relief from the feeling that something is now unfinished. And once you're in that state, rules start to feel optional. Not because you don't respect them, but because they don't address what you're feeling. This is the moment where discipline quietly collapses. Not loudly, not dramatically, but politely. If this pattern feels familiar, this channel is for traders who value restraint over reaction. Subscribing here isn't about more content. It's a quiet commitment to clarity, especially when the pressure to act is strongest. To understand why rules collapse after a loss, you have to stop thinking in terms of discipline and start thinking in terms of cognitive state transitions. A loss is not just negative feedback. It's an interruption. Before the loss, you were operating inside a defined structure. Rules felt natural because they aligned with your internal state. After the loss, that alignment breaks. The brain interprets loss as unresolved information. Something went wrong. Something needs adjustment. This is where traders confuse analysis with repair. Analysis asks, what does the system say now? Repair asks, how do I remove this discomfort? The problem is that repair feels urgent. Physiologically, a loss activates the same systems associated with threat and error correction. Your attention narrows, your time horizon shrinks, you become outcome focused instead of process focused. I've noticed that after a loss, traders don't suddenly become emotional in obvious ways. They become selectively rational. They start scanning the market for evidence that supports immediate re-engagement. This looks similar to my setup. Momentum is still there. I don't want to miss the move. What's happening is subtle. The rule system hasn't disappeared. It's being overridden. The brain is prioritizing resolution over consistency. And here's the critical part. Rule breaking after a loss is not about greed. It's about restoring a sense of control. Loss temporarily removes your feeling of agency. Rules, paradoxically, can feel like constraints during that moment. So you bend them, not because you don't believe in them, but because they delay the emotional resolution you're seeking. I've broken rules myself in the past for this exact reason. Not because I wanted more trades, but because waiting felt like surrender. Following rules felt like admitting the loss had power. This is why traders often say they were trying to make it back. They're not referring to money. They're referring to self-trust. The irony is that rule breaking does the opposite. It deepens the fracture. Each broken rule increases internal inconsistency. Each inconsistency weakens confidence. Now, the trader is no longer just dealing with a loss. They're dealing with identity erosion. And at that point, discipline doesn't feel supportive anymore. It feels restrictive. This is why willpower fails. You cannot out-discipline a state mismatch. Rules only work when the trader's internal state matches the structure those rules were designed for. After a loss, that state has changed. Until it resets, rules feel foreign. This is why traders who know exactly what to do still don't do it. Because knowledge doesn't regulate state, environment does. The solution to post-loss rule breaking is not stronger rules. It's state containment. You don't need better discipline. You need fewer decisions. The only effective way to prevent rule breaking after a loss is to remove the trader from discretionary control during that window. That's it. The most effective traders I've observed don't rely on motivation after a loss. They rely on pre-committed constraints. Simple ones. No trading for a fixed period after a loss. No exceptions. No, just one more. This isn't punishment. It's state stabilization. You're giving the nervous system time to reset. You're allowing perception to normalize. The strategy itself becomes secondary here. One simple framework works well. After any losing trade, the only valid action is disengagement, not review, not re-entry. Disengagement. I use this concept because it removes interpretation. There's nothing to debate, no judgment required. Loss equals pause. During that pause, the market becomes irrelevant. Your only objective is to return to baseline. Once baseline is restored, rules feel natural again. At that point, structure supports you instead of restricting you. This is also why fewer trades often lead to better behavior. Less exposure means fewer state disruptions. The goal isn't to avoid losses. That's impossible. The goal is to prevent losses from altering your operating system. When rules are followed consistently, it's not because the trader is strong. It's because the environment makes deviation difficult. That's discipline by design. And once you see rule breaking as a state problem rather than a character flaw, everything changes. You stop trying to fix yourself. You start containing risk where it actually begins. If this helped you see your behavior more clearly, you already understand what this channel is about. Quiet structure, fewer decisions, discipline that survives pressure. This is Quiet Trader. Please subscribe and give us a like. Thank you. See you in the next one.